Okay, it is Free Speech Friday time, and quite a red letter of Free Speech Friday, because we've got our regular Maurice Williamson joining us. Maurice, how are you?
Very well, thanks, Sean. Very well.
And the inaugural Platform Platinum member exercising his right to free speech by participating in a Free Speech Friday. He is a Wellington businessman, and his name is Shayne Hodge. How are you, Shayne?
Morning, Sean. Morning, Morris.
All
Good
right.
morning, Shayne.
Now,
Has
Shayne,
Sean told you about the initiation ceremony you got to go through?
Oh, yeah, look, tell
Yeah,
him.
well, I've already got my bicycle helmet on and my high vis on it, so I think I'm fully
Okay.
safety and protected.
Okay, and you're surrounded by road cones, I hope, by orange cones as well, Shayne. Look,
I am feeling safe.
let's just deal with that, guys. I think this is an hilarious story because the woke media decided to have a crack at Seymour. Oh, he thought about getting rid of the mandated cycle helmets. I've just interviewed Eric Crampton from the New Zealand Initiative, and he's actually explained that the evidence really isn't very strong for having a law about cycle helmets. And as I pointed, you wouldn't ban them, and if people wanted to wear them to feel safer, they should be allowed to, Shayne, shouldn't they?
I think so. Look, I can only speak about my own experience. I actually fell off my bike going down a rate of knots on a very steep hill in Anderson's Bay in Dunedin on my way to school, and sort of got the Wrigley 6 stitches in the head. Some would argue that as a result of that, if it's because of who I am. So I probably have to embrace it.
Maurice, the other thing that Eric came to was, look, this is really, if the evidence is ambiguous, which it clearly is, it's a philosophical question. Do we want more regulation or less? Do we leave it to people to make decisions for themselves, or does nanny state do it?
The issue always comes back to the evidence base. Now, one of the problems I faced, Transport Minister, was making seatbelts compulsory. I don't like anything compulsory. I like people to make a choice. But the problem you've got is the cost to the ACC system of people getting thrown through their windscreen and onto the road and splattered and months, years in hospital and so on, literally outweighed what the inconvenience of having to click your belt in. And I was in a war on the media with Lindsay Perigo over this because he believed that, liberty was that you should have the right to or not. If we could grant an exemption to people and say, you get an exemption, you don't have to wear a seatbelt, but we don't pick you up from the side of the road, scrape you into a container and take you off to hospital at our cost, then I'd be okay with it. In the case of cycle helmets, I don't think the evidence is that strong. I think there's quite clearly a view that, we've got to protect everybody and stick this on, but there's plenty of places around the world where they don't make it compulsory and they get less injuries and less damage or the same level of it as we have. And if that is the case, I can't see why it is compulsory.
Yeah. Now, Shayne, at any stage, you're allowed to jump in and say Maurice is talking Hodge and argue with him. That's part of the whole deal. Just reminding you.
I wondered what the jousting stick was this morning that was sent to me by the platform. Now I know. I'll joust away.
All right. Look, I want to move on to a story that in a strange way has touched the platform. A 47-year-old man, I think, in Auckland has been jailed for importing thousands of objectionable images, sexual images involving adults and young girls, I think, and some of the most depraved and ugly stuff by description. He got a sentence discount for giving $50,000 to charity, and he was also by a district court judge granted permanent name suppression, even while he's in prison, permanent name suppression of his family name and the business that his family is associated with. I am told by legal sources in the last 12 hours, this isn't actually entirely uncommon, which amazed me. And now we find this morning or yesterday in BR that Wayne Wright, co-founder of the platform, if you grokked who was this person, his name came up. And there's all sorts of speculation about who it was. First, Shayne, do you reckon it's right that some pedo-inclined pornographer gets permanent name suppression without us knowing why?
Look, name suppression, particularly in cases of child exploitation, it protects the offender reputation instead of protecting our kids. And I don't think that's justice. We don't know the nuances of the case, but prima facie, on the face of it, it just appears as though a large donation has been made by influential family, and justice has not been seen to prevail, particularly since he's been convicted and is now inside Her Majesty's prison.
Yeah. Maurice, the other thing is what we've seen with Wayne Jr., right? Everyone else could be guilty if one person isn't.
Yeah, that's always an interesting case. I remember when I was working at Air New Zealand, a particular hostess was accused of having taken off her uniform and had sex with a guy in the seat of the aeroplane. And the crew all wanted her gone and wanted her expelled from the company because they were all being asked on flights, are you the one that turns it up? Are you the girl? And they just wanted it done and dusted and gone. And so if you've got the speculation
Did you know,
going on,
Maurice?
is it you? I knew who it was, yes.
We got a number?
There was, it was a long time ago now, I don't think we'd be interested in that stuff. Look, but if there's speculation about could it be him, the name suppression thing I think is grossly overused in this country. I think it's needed when you've got to protect the victim because they don't want, it will identify who they are then and they don't want it. I'm okay with that. But if you are the actual bloody perpetrator of some of the most ghastly stuff, you are found guilty. I don't think the name suppression should be lifted until the verdict is done, because it might be that you're not guilty. But after that, you'd have to have a bloody good reason why that person's name isn't made public.
And we haven't been given one. Shayne, the other thing is, often in these cases, you know, someone comes forward and someone's name is published, and suddenly a whole lot of other dodgy stuff that people have been too afraid to talk about, and maybe other crimes are exposed by people coming forward.
Look, communities deserve to know who poses the risk so they can keep kids safe. It's that simple. And I agree with Maurice. Name suppression has a place. It does seem to be abused or overused, and I agree that once you've been convicted of the offence, name suppression should lapse. The bar should be very, very high for name suppression to exist after your conviction. And in this case, I think the serious questions need to be answered. I understand that the Department of Customs, who brought the charge in the first place, is considering appealing this, and I'd hope they do so.
Yeah.
But Shayne, what I think should be mandatory also is an incredibly detailed explanation from the judge as to why he's allowing it.
No, I think it's a she. And it's only a district court judge. It seems quite a... Well, I'm not saying overreach. District court judges, they're not the best in the books. There's a reason they're just district court judges. And it would seem to me that such a...
no, but I think the public's got a right to know the reason. And if it was made clear, look,
absolutely.
I'm doing this and I'm doing this because, and everyone goes, yeah, well, maybe. But this idea of I'm not accountable to anybody, I'm unelected, I'm unaccountable, and I'm just going to decide that this person will get off scot-free and have name suppression is just wrong.
Well, they haven't got off scot-free. They're doing jail time.
We get explanations, don't we, about why...
Yeah. Explanations.
Well, you get explanations as to why there's discounts. 50% discount for this, 25% discount for pulling your socks up. We don't get on the flip side of that a reason as to why, in this instance, name suppression has been allowed to prevail.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right, guys, let's move on to the next topic. And they say revenge is a dish best taken cold. And it was possibly on ice when a year and a half after becoming the Minister of Foreign Affairs, it appears, though we do not have the details of this, that Mr. Winston Peters has succeeded in recalling Trevor Mallard as our ambassador to Ireland, a position he took up having left the speakership early and being appointed by Jacinda Ardern to be our man in Ireland after his controversial involvement in the parliamentary protests of, what year was it? 2022. And Winston Peters, amazingly doing himself out of future jobs, says politicians shouldn't in general be diplomats, though he then told me yesterday he thought Annette King was an excellent High Commissioner to Australia.
He was.
Maurice, should politicians be able to take diplomatic posts, or are they just jobs for the boys and girls sinecures?
Well, a bit difficult for me to answer that, given I was Consul General in Los Angeles.
Yes, that's exactly why I asked you, because you've ridden this gravy train, haven't you?
California.
No, let me give you an answer on this. There isn't a black and white view on this. I believe it's horses for courses. I don't think they should be just because they were a well-known politician. But if you take some of the people we've put into positions, like Tim Grosser was our trade minister, phenomenal knowledge on trade. We put him in as ambassador into Washington, D.C. He'd already been an ambassador before he became a member of parliament, and he was an ambassador to Indonesia. Tim was an outstanding representative of this country in DC. But there is an element in some of those big things. Canberra's one, and I agree, I think, standing High Commissioner for us. There is an element in there that if you are a well-known political figure like, say, Bolger or Mike Moore, both who were prime ministers and both who served in Washington, D.C., you get access into the networks and the political structure that ordinary diplomats out of MFAT wouldn't even be known or heard of or get through a phone call to. And so I don't have a problem with it. I certainly have a problem with Trevor Mallard's appointment. I see no way that you could understand him either being in the diplomatic service or having benefited anyway from trade background or whatever. And I was surprised that he didn't get the recall within an hour of the government being sworn in.
Well, that's because Winston said he didn't want to look vindictive. And I tried to say to him, you don't look any less vindictive a year and a half on than you would have a year and a half ago. Shayne, you live in the real world, mate. You run a business. You got to worry about return on investment and making a buck. When you hear Maurice Williamson ducking and diving about how the world works, is that a gravy train you'd like to be on? And is it, to someone like you, do you look at it and think, no matter how you dress it up, it looks like jobs for the boys and girls?
Well, I agree with Maurice to some extent. The big three, London, Canberra and Washington. I mean, I don't know, Maurice, if you got to choose the Hotel California as your post, but that was a good gig. But, it's Mallard coming home early. He was due back in January, so coming home in November, it's not exactly a recall, is it? It's more like a polite escort home, not exactly a grand exit. But yes, there is a balance. I mean, the Mallard appointment was wrong. His history as an MP, as Speaker of the House, and those things that he did when the protest was outside Parliament, turning on the sprinklers, I mean, it was childish. And those are not the sort of people you want in a diplomatic role in any shape or form.
Mm. I'm going to
In my 30 years in Parliament, I met an enormous number of MPs who came and went over that time. The one that I would have to say had the least likelihood of ever being called diplomatic or holding a diplomatic position would have been Trevor Mallard.
Mind you, the Irish, they get drunk and they fight. Maybe he was the perfect...
Oh, well, maybe he was suited. Maybe, again, horses for
I am
courses,
going to drop a major break on this story. I don't think that Winston had anything to do with the recall of Trevor Mallard.
Right.
I had been pushing for this because I got him to commit to recalling him and David Seymour prior to the last election. I have been bugging him on this every month or so for the past year and a half, to the point where people from Winston Peters' office asked me to provide them with the transcript where he ever said he would recall Trevor Mallard for all the world they were trying to wriggle out of it.
Okay.
So I'm telling you that, Shayne, you may have struck on something. The difference between November and January is 3 months. Maybe Trevor Mallard just decided he wanted to get home and he's got another gig, or he's going to be involved in the Labour Party's next election campaign. But I'm not sure that Winston isn't saying, see, I delivered on my promise, when it's purely a fluke and accident. I think that's entirely possible, don't you?
Oh, hard to say. I think that the timing's amazing, because if he'd done it earlier, then Trevor could have stood for Mayor of Wellington.
You rotter.
Right, hang on. In defence of Wellington and our mayor, in fact,
we're going to hold that thought, Shayne. We're going to go to a commercial break and we'll come back and get into that. Oh, it's going off. And it's Free Speech Fridays, brought to you by the Free Speech Union, the champions of free speech in New Zealand. And we have a great free speech story on an absolute victory for the Free Speech Union that we will have next week. I can't say anything more, but it's a great story. So FSU bring you Free Speech Fridays. With us this Friday, Maurice Williamson, a regular on the program. And our first Platform Platinum member, Wellington businessman Shayne Hodge. who is exercising his right to take part in one Free Speech Friday a year for his membership. All right, guys, we were talking Wellington City Council. I pay my rates in Wellington City, and I didn't know it. I'm paying for a BDS thing, which is Boycott, Defund and Sanction, which is a global Palestinian movement to isolate Israel and isolate Israel commercially by boycotting. I never signed up for this. I don't pay my rates for it. But I now understand it's being adopted by Tory Whanau and the council in an amendment on disaster recovery, is that you won't use an Israeli cell phone or something if there's a disaster. I think this is outrageous. They use the word genocide. There is no genocide. They use the word war crimes. The only war crime is hiding behind a civilian population when you're Hamas. And it is the last thing, Shayne, that I want my council to be doing. I want them to be fixing their crappy infrastructure and stop building so many cycleways. Well,
Sean, look, I'm getting a little bit tired of our mayor being just the boxing bag for everybody. I'm a fully paid up member of Citizens for Tory, and I think Tory Whanau, I mean, she hasn't officially been appointed ambassador to Palestine, but let's face it, she's already running the job. She's defended pro-Palestinian murals, flirted with a sister city relationship in Ramallah, and as you say, even banned Israeli products. And if nothing else, I reckon she's got an eye for the future when her role as Māori ward councillor comes to an end in 3 years. So between all that, Wellington might as well be the embassy in waiting. If that isn't diplomatic experience, I don't know what is.
Shayne, I knew it was a good idea to do this.
Did Winston include ex-mayors in his shouldn't be?
It shouldn't be, yeah, that's right, Maurice. Maurice,
the only men members of Parliament.
Is there any of this lunacy up in Auckland?
Yeah, there's people on our council that have tried in every which way to get notices of motion. But look, in the end, even for something that I'm a big supporter of, I can't give you one offhand, but a big movement overseas that I was a supporter of, still has got no right to be part of a council. We're there to do the core roles and function that a local authority should be doing. Roads and infrastructure and water and wastewater and rubbish collections and so on. When you immediately start stepping out into the rest of the world, there are thousands of either sort of things you should support strongly or not, which everyone's got a different view on. It is not the role of council, and I would never vote for a council to ever be involved in any of this stuff. That is for government to deal with, because it's a government-to-government, central government foreign affairs type issue. We should just make sure the bloody water and wastewater works and the rubbish gets collected.
But the truth is, for Wellington, this isn't going to stop, is it, Shayne? It looks like Ray Chung's Merrill bid is dead in the water. Diane Calvert will give it a decent crack, but essentially the loony lefties are going to roll back in with angry Andrew Little, who would not answer our question about whether or not he supported this, or Little-led Mayoralty would support BDS in Wellington. Nothing's going to change, Shayne.
No, it's not. And look, it's a real shame. And Wellington, because of course it is sort of the beltway of politics and just by nature of everybody that's employed here.
You've also got some significant investment in Wellington, haven't you?
We have. We're reducing it, but we still have it. We're a long-term investor, commercial property investor in the Wellington region, and very supportive of it. And like everything, seasonal, and Wellington's in winter when everybody else is jumping into spring. So we'll get there eventually. But this revolving door of party politics, either people coming in to see it as an apprenticeship to central government, and we've seen that already with Tamworth and Paul, or ex-politicians not being able to cut it in the commercial world and having to throw their hat back in local politics. They've got to park their politics at the door. Councils are about, their main role is infrastructure, looking after infrastructure. They have a monopoly on that, and everything else is side sell it. And we just can't afford to have time wasted and money expended on these idealistic ideas that mean absolutely nothing.
Yeah. But while I've got you here, Shayne, what about the Dixon Street flat sale, where iwi or someone get to buy it for $1 million? Are you up with that?
No, well, and other than that, they were given preferential treatment to buy it, and it wasn't actually open to an open tender. We just don't know the contestability of that sale and whether that actually represents fair value.
Yeah.
It is a liability. There's costs that have to be invested, but at the end of the day, on an open market transaction, you'd certainly then thrash out what the market says. Here again, once again, behind closed doors, preferential will be given to a party over others, and that sort of transaction needs some sunlight exposed.
Yeah. Look, Maurice, here's another thing in councils that I was shocked at. The Western Bay of Plenty District Council advertising for people to support Māori wards. I don't know if I've ever seen anything more off in my life.
Again, I think that's just so wrong. This is a democracy. The government have made it such that you have to have a referendum to decide. I think that's perfectly correct. We tried to get a vote round the Auckland Council for Māori wards, and we managed to stop it happening. And the reason I put forward was that the 20 people sitting around that table could easily be a different 20 people after October. And my argument is 20 people should not decide for 1.5 million Aucklanders whether you're going to have this or not. This should be at a referendum where the public get a say and they will decide. And for the Western Bay of Plenty to be promoting it and using ratepayers' funds to it is so wrong. I do note their mayor is called Denier, so...
Okay, well, I think it's corrupt, to be honest. Politicians shouldn't take public funds to promote the positions they're interested in, should they, Shayne? Well, unless they're in government,
Local government just continue. I mean, when everybody's looking at local government under a serious lens at the moment, they keep giving themselves uppercuts by doing this nonsense. I mean, everybody's wanting them to focus on their core activities, to provide value for money, and this sort of extracurricular activity, it just flies in the face of it. And then they wonder why central government's going to come in and actually going to take some action in terms of actually getting them back on track, to coin their phrase.
Yeah. Look, guys, and maybe our final topic, and it's still going on. Ardern, Hipkins, Robertson not fronting up at the COVID inquiry, and I know the story's been around for a week, but it's a very interesting question, and I'm just going to throw out that maybe they were right to expect that a public submission would have been like they would have been put in the stocks and had tomatoes thrown at them, or did they have an obligation to front up, Maurice?
Well, I take the opposite view. I think that if I had ever done anything in politics that was dreadfully unpopular, like I bought in the photo driver's license, and at the time there was war waged against me in the media. This was Big Brother, this was an ID card, this was dreadful. But if you believe it's right, and you believe you've done the right thing, and you believe the benefits to the public, well, you have an obligation, but you also want to demand. I want to be coming to your committee. I want to tell you why I did this, and I want to tell you what the benefits have been. When you say, no, I don't want to go, I'm not going, and so on, you immediately have completely vacated the ground of any sort of the superiority about what you'd done was right. And it clearly shows they know they cocked it up badly, or they would welcome to go along and put their case, why they did it, and what the benefits were.
Shayne, what do you reckon?
Yes, absolutely. Look, it tells the public simple, in fact, that those politicians are more interested in protecting their reputations rather than uncovering the truth. And, what did they have to lose? I mean, hindsight's always a great thing. And, if they were held to their convictions that what they did was correct, regardless of information that's come to light since that, well, you can't hold that against them. You can criticise them, and we can hopefully learn about it. But their daily briefings that they used to have, that was all about control. And this was all about scrutiny, and they're avoiding it. And I think we're the weaker for it because of it.
Guys, anything else that has got you going this week? You want to talk about helicopters and planes for the Air Force?
I want a quick line again about the name of our country. I keep banging this drum, but I'm really onto it. I can tell you that while I was based in Los Angeles and I went to supermarkets and butchers and wine shops, I heard over and over again people say, do you have any New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc? Yes, aisle 3. Is that lamb New Zealand lamb? Yeah, no, it's from Chile. Don't want to buy it. I heard the name New Zealand in every place around LA because it had such a premium name associated with it. I never once heard anyone ask for Aotearoa wine.
All right, well said. Shayne, anything got your goat this week in particular?
No, I just want to know, do I keep the jousting sticks and the high-vis jacket
You
and
pass it
cycle
on
helmet
to the
you
next
sent me, or do I have
person.
to send that back?
Oh, bring it to the
has-
party. Bring it to the party
Has
we're going to have.
Has Sean not told you what happens to you after this?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Oh, boy. Oh, that's-
Morris.
Shh, don't blow it, Morris. Shayne Hodge, thank you. You are our inaugural platinum member guest on Free Speech Fridays. I hope you had a good time. You certainly made a great contribution. Morris, lovely talking to you again. We'll do it all again
one.
next Friday at 8:30.
Good on.
That was Free Speech Fridays, brought to you by the Free Speech Union. They are the absolute champions of free speech in this country. Check them out at fsu.nz. You can join, and if you've got a problem, if your speech is being curtailed, they are the people to sort you out.